Appreciate you staying with us here on Birds 365. You got Bill Colarulo in for John McMullen today, me, Jody McDonald, and that would be J.C. Allen from the Bucs Game Day. Been covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for years, been on the show with us before. Good to get him back in the mix here. J.C., when the Bucs won last week in not overly impressive fashion, defensively they did 9 points, not going to set the world on fire. But they knew they were in there to win, to get in and host a playoff game. How did they feel about facing the Eagles?
You know, this is something that's really crazy because after their week 3 loss, Devin White actually said, it's all right, we'll see them again. And here we are down the road, and we're seeing them again. It's also kind of a funny story this past week. Obviously, Dave Canales, the offensive coordinator, was requested by the Panthers for an interview. So somebody had made an Instagram account back before training camp even started of Dave Canales, an imposter account. Used his family names, updated the stories after wins and losses all through the season. So there was a really weird post out of character that said, you know, thankful for my time in Tampa Bay, excited for this Carolina. If everything goes well, you know, I'm grateful for the opportunities. So, you know, I posted that on Instagram, on Twitter, like, oh my goodness, why is he doing this? Turns out it was an Eagles fan.
Really?
Imposing as the coach the entire time, and then posted the next thing on his story. Got you, you know, go Birds, fly Eagles, fly. So not only are the players motivated for this game, I think the fans have a little extra motivation too for this game as well.
And that's like some Kaiser Sose stuff right there.
It was crazy. That long play, like, I mean, after you think before training camp, you think he would have done it after week 3, but this guy went the distance. So
nice.
He had some foreshadow too, like Devin White did.
Maybe. Well, you look back at that week 3 game, and we talked about it earlier on the show. September is an eternity ago. But one thing the Eagles were able to do really well was run the football, put up over 200 yards. By far the most this Bucs defense has given up all season. They've been really good against the run. What do you think happens tonight? Are the Eagles going to be able to run the football against this really good Bucs defense? Or is this Bucs defense, was that just an outlier, that week 3 game?
I think they're sure as heck going to try to. The Bucs, they were down a few pieces. Last time these two teams met, they didn't have Kalijah Kancey. He was out with injury, so that's a huge piece for them that they have. Yaya Diaby hadn't taken that large growth step into a starting role, so he'll be out there now, very physical and really good at setting the edge. We've seen multiple tackles. He actually led all rookies for tackles for loss this season, so having him there is another big boost. They also didn't have Carlton Davis, who's really good in run support. And Jamel Dean left early on that game too, who's also good in run support. So on the interior of the line, on the outside boundaries with the cornerbacks, and then on the edge. Plus, you also have to remember that Devin White was dealing with a groin injury. Part of the reason why he couldn't return that interception for a touchdown that Jalen Hurts threw to him. So there's quite a few pieces that were missing that are going to be back or are healthy enough that they're going to try to make a difference. But I think if you're the Bucs and the Bucs defense, that's priority number 1 is make sure Swift doesn't hurt you.
JC, I'm a big fan of Todd Bowles as a defensive play caller. Not as big a fan of him as a head coach, but he's very good at calling defensive plays.
Right.
And his blitzing has been very effective this year. And oh, by the way, I'm sure you know by now, the Eagles have not done well facing blitzes. Right. How aggressive is Bowles going to be tonight? If you're reviewing the past, it seems to me like it's going to be an uber aggressive game. Do you expect that when the two teams take the field tonight?
I expect them to mix in the blitzes early on. I think it really depends on if they can get home with 4. If they're struggling to get home or put pressure on Jalen Hurts with 4, then they're definitely going to have to send some extra pressure. It also depends on how well they're doing at stopping the run and the extension of the run, of course, those screen games. So I definitely expect him to have some exotic looks. You know, maybe he'll line up Kancey wide 9. Maybe he'll drop Vita Vea into the defensive tackle position.
You mean like dropping our guy Hassan Reddick in pass coverage 9 times? 9 times the last game.
Yeah.
Can't be doing pass coverage, huh?
I think they'll do a little bit. I mean, this is a guy who's had Vita Vea dropping pass coverage. So I think he'll do some crazy things up front to try to disguise looks, to try to send some simulator pressure. So I definitely expect him to send more. I think Antoine Winfield will certainly get his cracks as one of the best All-Pro. Antoine Winfield, I should say that, is one of the best guys down in the line of scrimmage. So he's going to send the blitz. It's just I think his preference is to get home with 4 and play that zone defense and not let the rest of the guys beat you.
You follow this team closely, obviously, and I just look at the numbers over the last 6 games, and it looks like the Bucs are playing great football. 5-1, plus 38-point differential, beat the Packers in those 6 games, who we just saw dominate the Cowboys. But how good are the Bucs playing right now? Is that just statistics, or is it passing the eye test as well that they're playing really well?
I think the defense is playing tremendous. They're the second-ranked defense of those last 6 games. They have been playing absolutely great. They had the shutout against Carolina. They also held, I think, to 12 points for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So they've been playing tremendous. The offense has had its hiccups, especially over the last 2 games. But a large portion of that, too, is due to Baker and his rib injury, his ankle injury that he sustained, too. So they're not being able to get it going. But, you can't overlook the fact, too, that the Saints defense is really good. And the Panthers defense was ranked number 3 in the season. So, I mean, those are 2 good defenses. So what the biggest thing is everyone feels comfortable now on the offensive side of the ball as far as run fits, as far as the passing diagram, everything, offensive coordinator, Baker Mayfield, they're in lockstep right now with Dave Canales. So you look at week 3, and this was a team that was just playing together in their 3rd game. Baker Mayfield had to split reps all throughout the summer with Kyle Trask in a quarterback competition. So he was still getting to know his guys still. He was still getting to know what his line does, still getting to know all these things. Now we fast forward to this point of the season over this last 6-game stretch where they know each other. They know what they're doing. They know the playbook inside and out. That's why they've had such success, especially in the run game, moving the ball, taking those shots down the field, is because everybody kind of understands what's expected of them in this offense. When back when these 2 teams faced, it was still getting your feet wet.
All right. I was actually watching the Bucs game last week, 9-0 over Tampa, and they had it in the red zone of the Panthers, and they didn't convert on the 3rd down, and they were going for a field goal. I thought they might need to call a timeout because of too many men on the field, because it took Baker Mayfield that long to get off the field. He was so hurting. He couldn't even jog off the field. He had to walk off the field, and he sucked it up and got back in there and finished the game. I tip my hat to him. I think he's a tough guy quarterback. He's been questionable all week long. How do we know what percentage Baker Mayfield will be at by the time kickoff goes? Is there a telltale sign with Baker that a fan could read and go, all right, yeah, he's all right. He's going to give it oh, man, he's not – no way he's finishing taking every snap of this game. Anything you can tip your hand with on Baker Mayfield?
I think Baker's probably around 70, 75% right now, which is enough to start a playoff game. These opportunities don't come often. He's only been to one playoff run in his career. He's going to go out there and give everything he's got. I'm sure he'll get a nice little shot to kind of, numb things up. And obviously the adrenaline will start flowing and he won't feel it as much. But, it all starts up front. The line's got to block. They've got to protect against this vaunted front 7, front 8, 9, 10, 11 with the rotation. By the time you get through the rotation of these guys who can impact the game along that front 7, they've got to be ready. They've got to be ready to sustain blocks. Baker's got to be ready to get rid of the ball quick if it's not there. He can't take unnecessary hits. If he does that, that could, jar some things up and prevent him from, as you said, not finishing this game. So, he's definitely going to be hurting, especially after the game. But they rested him those 2 days, that bonus day on Wednesday and on Thursday, had him practice on Friday and Saturday because of that reason, because he's banged up and they want to preserve him as much as they can and preserve him throwing. So he's as close to 100% as he can be right now.
And we're talking about Baker Mayfield. Let's talk about the running game for your offense, because worst rushing offense in the entire NFL. If Baker Mayfield's hurt or he's not 100% like you're indicating, are they going to be able to establish the run? They haven't really been able to run on anybody. What do you attribute that to? Is that the offensive line? Do they not run block very well?
In the beginning of the season, it was you can point to a lot of things. The offensive line, Rashad White not using his patience and vision enough. Left a lot of meat on the bone in a lot of his runs early in the season. Dave Canales maybe not knowing when to call the runs. So I think in the beginning of the season, you saw a lot of those issues kind of stack on top of each other, and that's why they weren't able to run. If you look at the last 6 games of the season, they were able to kind of get the run going a lot more, and even use Rachaad White in the screen game as an extension of their run. You look back to that Atlanta Falcons game, he had that 31-yard screen pass or a touchdown. Getting him in space is huge. And then Chase Edmonds, too, he brings a different burst. So, it was a compilation of a bunch of different things, but they've been able to move the ball a lot more. Dave Canales is going to want balance on that offensive side of the football. He's going to want to try to wear those big guys down on the Eagles defensive line, so they can kind of do what they want in that fourth quarter if they're still in it, if it's still a game. But your guess is as good as mine. It's been a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde each week for the running game. And are they going to show up? Are they going to show out? I guess we'll just have to wait till tonight to see.
And by the way, in the passing game, and again, we'll see what Baker's level of capability is when the game starts. He's got guys to throw to. Another combined 2,000-yard guys between Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Only 13 touchdowns for Mike Evans this year. Guy's going to the Hall of Fame. How has he been doing it? You would think coming into this matchup, back to week number 3 again, you got Darius Slay, James Bradbury, who's coming off a very good year last year, matching up against 2 all-pro level wide receivers. Should be a great showdown.
Yeah, so go ahead. No, I was going to say, so what they've done really is moved Mike around all over the place. He's not only been a guy who's been on the outside running go routes, kind of what they've used him for the last 3 years under Arians and Leftwich. He's a guy who's moving around in the slot, doing different things, hitches, hooks. He's been all sorts of he's been all over the field in all sorts of variations. You go back to training camp, he comes off the field and says, I've never been this open in my life. You look at these situations where you guys are like, was that Mike? Because they're using him in different ways than he's ever been used, and it's showing up on the stat sheet. 1,400 yards, 13 touchdowns, 10th straight consecutive 1,000-yard season. And as for Godwin, you look at Godwin and you think, oh, that's a slot guy, right? He's been in the slot most of his career. He's playing on the outside a lot more, and that's giving him these opportunities as well to make some amazing boundary catches. You look back at that Vikings game to seal the deal all the way back in week 1, and that's what he's capable of. He's actually one of the best top 2 contested catch receivers in the league since 2019. So a lot of people don't know that about Chris. He's not just a one-trick pony. He can play outside. He can play in the slot. And he can, take the ball away from defensive backs like no other.
And talking about Mike Evans, this may be his last game in a Bucs uniform, right? He's in the final year of his deal.
He is, but I would be shocked if the Bucs and Mike Evans don't find a way to come back, get something resolved for him to come back. Now, they may let him test the market and say they've done that over the last couple of years with guys like Levante David, Bucs legend, most underrated linebacker in all of football, probably ever. They've done that with Carlton Davis. They've done that with Jamel Dean. Go test. Tell us what you got. If we can match it, we'll match it. If not, we wish you luck. So the only place I feel like Mike Evans would even really consider, I know the Chiefs have been thrown out like crazy and so have the Jets, but I think Houston is the only spot that he'd actually consider closer to home from Galveston. Otherwise, I don't think he leaves Tampa Bay. I think they find a way to get something done. Maybe not the Cooper Kupp money he was asking for, but somewhere around $23, $24 million a year with a large portion of it guaranteed over 3 years. I think they get something done.
All right, I just want to run this by you, and I know it's weird, and we should be talking about the Bucs and the Eagles, the matchup, who's going to win the game tonight, but I love looking ahead. There's been conversation about if the Eagles lose, Nick Sirianni's job could be at stake here. Last night when the Dallas Cowboys lost, there was immediate rumbles that, Belichick and Jerry Jones, it's stranger bed partners have come down before. How about this one? If the Eagles all of a sudden look like the 10-1 team, not the 1-5 team last night, go in and just bury the Bucs by 3 touchdowns tonight, is Todd Bowles' job in jeopardy? And would Bill Belichick think about following in the footsteps of Tom Brady and go from New England to Tampa to take over the Buccaneers next year?
For the first part of that question is that they have to be embarrassed, flat out embarrassed, kind of like the Dallas Cowboys would have been for them to consider that. I think Bowles kind of locked his good with the loss. I think he still survives, but if it's a blowout loss, now I think you're talking about a different thing. Remember, this is showbiz. To the owners, this is showbiz. It's not sure they want to see their team win, but at the end of the day, this is about making money. And who puts more butts in the seats than Belichick, right? If you're trying to sell a $70,000 stadium with an idea of bringing back Todd Bowles, good luck. You'll probably see 1/3 of away jerseys in there like you did this entire season. But if you bring in someone like Belichick, now there's a lot of buzz, there's a lot of excitement around the team, not to mention national media, the news. Does Belichick want to finish that up? It's funny because when you look at the dynamic of the front office, with Jason Light, Belichick's worked with him very closely. The Glazers, I think, are really great owners kind of, they don't meddle and they're very supportive. So I think that would be a good fit as well. They kind of just leave football operations to the football guys, unlike what kind of Kraft has been doing a few years up in New England. The piece of the defense, he runs kind of that sort of 4-3-3-4 hybrid, a lot of nickel, a lot of dime stuff. They've got some great pieces for him to use up there down here in Tampa. So would I rule it out? Absolutely out of the question? No. But do I think any of it's likely? I also don't. And I think if they were probably going to do something like that, maybe if Bowles were to let go, maybe they'd kind of look in-house at Dave Canales and kind of get him, that head coaching job 1 year earlier than being 1 year late, because he's already getting interviews this year, and that's the problem with defensive coaches, guys. You know that, right? You got a good defensive coach who finds a good offensive coordinator, he's looking for another one in 2 years. Bobby Slowick, is in that same boat with D'Amico Ryans. They're looking at him now. So maybe they choose to go that route, if anything. He's got a good rapport. Offensive guys already know him. He's young. He's bright. I think that'd be the route they go.
Interesting. Looking at the Bucs defense, so you guys give up a lot of yards, but not a lot of points. Top 6, only giving up 19 points a game, and I think it's because your red zone defense is so good. Top 3 red zone defense. What makes the Bucs so good in the red zone?
Yeah, it's funny, when teams are like the 22 or the 23, you're like, just get 3 more yards, or just get into the red zone, please, because that they're going to be so good. It's the field's so condensed, and Bowles has so many different packages for it. The communication is a little bit easier as well. When you look at this team, they've let up a lot of explosives over the season, and different communication issues. They've got so many injuries, so they've had different guys rotating in and out all season. So it hasn't been a consistent group. I think they only have 2 or 3 games with their starting group out there on the field before injuries started to take hold. So, it's been a lot of just different communication problems, and with a condensed field, it's easier to do that. These are, and you're not playing so much zone too when you get down in there. And Todd Bowles has been running a lot of the soft zone, which has kind of let these openings and explosives happen. And, you've got 2 guys who are the best in the league on the outside and in press coverage, man press coverage, in Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis. So you let those guys do their thing down there in the end zone. They make it very difficult for quarterbacks to find their receivers. So I think all those things kind of contributed to it too. And the defensive line just gets stouter down there for whatever reason. They're just not today.
JC, Bill and I were kicking this around early in the show. We're judging it from this end. I need your read from that end, meaning in Tampa. Last time these 2 teams met, week number 3, I was watching the tape yesterday, and it sounded like an Eagle Hall game, to be honest with you. Every time the Eagles made a play, the cheers were outrageous, bad call, the boos were very relevant. We don't know how many Eagle fans are actually going to head down to this game. It's a playoff game. Playoffs. Yet the buzz is not here in Philadelphia right here, right now. The Bucs did win their way into the playoffs. I nothing, but they won their way into the playoffs. How big a Eagle crowd can we expect tonight? Are the Bucs fans not going to give up their tickets? Are they still complacent with it? What do you think the crowd is like tonight in the Horseshoe?
Well, I have seen a big concerted effort on social medias platforms to only sell to Bucs fans. If you're not going to be able to make it, because it's tough, it's a Monday night game, right? Of course, it's Martin Luther King Day, but at the same time, a lot of people have work tomorrow. We know how these games go. 8:20 game, you're up till 12 o'clock. I'm till 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. If you're especially if you're commuting, the game ends at 12. Now you're stuck in traffic trying to leave the stadium. You don't get home till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. You got work the next day. So a lot of people. Plus, we're expected to have some wet weather today. So a lot of fans might say, I'm not going, and throw them up in the secondary market, and hopefully Bucs fans buy them up. But the problem of it too is Tampa's such a melting pot. Like when I first moved down here, it took me 5 months till I finally met someone that was actually from Tampa, born and raised. It's so many different people moved down here, and of course, there's a big contingent of Philly fans too. And we're in the snowbird season too, so they're down here. Not to mention when you kind of look at the situation here, Bucs fans live here. Philadelphia fans, it's cold up there where you guys are right now. You can make a whole trip out of this, right? A little mini vacation. You come down Friday night, come down Saturday morning, leave Tuesday, and have it all kind of planned out. Bucs fans who are down here are planning around their work days. So I expected it to be at the stadium at least 1/3 full of Eagles fans, if not more. Maybe you're looking at a 60-40 split, Bucs fans to Eagles fans, but I expected it to be a large contingency of Philadelphia fans down here for tonight's game.
Very nice. All right, last thing for you, JC. Fill in the blank. The Buccaneers will eliminate the Eagles and advance in the playoffs or the Philadelphia Eagles kind of get their act back together, and they're off to Detroit to take on the Lions because. Pick or choose either one, fill in the blank.
The Buccaneers will move on to Detroit because they've got off to a hot start. They played sound, disciplined football, which means they're not beating themselves. They're not getting stupid penalties. They're not getting lured off sides in different situations. They're not letting up these big explosive plays. That's the way they're going to do it. They've got to get off to a hot start. They've got to play sound defense, stopping the run, making them one-dimensional without A.J. Brown, with a hobbled, Devontae Smith, and an injured Jalen Hurts. They've got to stop the run and try to make him one-dimensional. And they've got to get out fast. They've got to play smart. I mean, those are my keys to the game. I think if they can do those things, they should win. Reed Blankenship's a game-time decision. He had an interception that first week. A.J. Brown had 14 targets on 9 receptions for 131. They're going to have to split those around. Look for Dallas Goedert to get a lot of those excess targets that aren't going to be there. I think if they're going to win this game, he's going to be a key factor of it. And they got to continue to contain Jalen Hurts because, his fingers hurt. And, maybe he misses on some of those throws, especially if it's rainy, but his legs still work fine. So you got to do those things.
And the push will be run at least a couple times tonight. We can guarantee you that. JC, great stuff. We appreciate you jumping in with us. Always good when you join us. Hopefully you stay dry tonight if it's going to be raining. I know
I'll be in the press box, so we're good.
well enclosed there. So getting in and out of the stadium safely. Have a good watch, and thanks for jumping in with us today.
Always. Talk to you guys soon.
Our pleasure. JC Allen, reporter for Bucs Game Day. Used to be Pewter Report, now doing Bucs Game Day. All right, Johnny Mac. And not Johnny Mac. That's Bill Colarulo. Yeah, and we're going to get him up and ready for his power hour. But first things first, we got to come back and put a bow on this show.